All right, welcome back. Today we're continuing our RBT exam practice question series where we're going through 10 RBT questions and breaking them down, how you should think about them on your real exam. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. If you're looking for our proven study materials, please check out rbtexamreview.com. We offer 3 full practice exams, a task list study guide, and our combo pack, which includes everything. It's our best deal. Also, our competency study guide for both your initial and renewal. Any questions, comments, please let me know. I'd love to help. Other than that, work hard, study hard, get to our questions. Question 1. Last year, you made a buffalo chicken dip for your annual Super Bowl party. Everyone loved it and gave you compliments all night on how great your dish tasted. This year, you're going to make the chicken dip again. The compliments functioned as what? Okay, reinforcement punishment question. If you've been studying, if you've been following along on our videos, if you bought our study guide, hopefully this question is pretty straightforward. The first thing I think you should learn as a potential RBT are functions and then reinforcement and punishment. Those are our fundamentals. That's what we're going to build upon. That's what's going to make us good RBTs and good RBT exam takers. Okay. So reinforcement or punishment, that's what the question is. What do we ask ourselves? We'll ask ourselves, did the behavior that we're looking at increase and maintain, or did it decrease? The behavior we're looking at is making the chicken dip. Okay. Last year you made it. This year you made it again. So at the very least, that behavior maintained. It was reinforced by something. Okay. Last year, the consequence of making the dip were the compliments. Now, were those compliments added or were they removed? Well, they were added. So when you add stimuli to the environment, is that positive or negative? Of course, that's positive. So we know the behavior maintained and increased. We know we added something, right? Therefore, what do we get? We're going to get B, positive reinforcement. If you're new, okay, to studying, that's going to be a slow process at first as you break down positive, negative, reinforcement, punishment. As you get better, you're going to move through these type of questions very, very quickly. It's going to become second nature, okay? Remember, we're not about speed, right? We're about accuracy. Get the questions right, you're going to become faster. Question 2. Jess is preparing for her big gymnastics meet that is in 2 weeks. She has a routine memorized and executes it to perfection at her home gym. Today, she visits her friend's gym and wants her friend to watch her execute the routine. What is another benefit of just practicing at her friend's gym? Okay, what is Jess going to get out of practicing at the gym other than practice, right? Of course, she wants to perfect what she's doing. She's going to continue practicing, but now she's going to a different environment in front of a different person, okay, and adding all these different variables to her routine. What benefit will she gain out of doing this? Is she going to A, probe her skills? Well, no. What is probing? Probing is your ability before teaching takes place. Jess knows she can do the routine. She's already executed it to perfection. She doesn't need to probe those skills. B, she can develop behavior momentum. Behavioral momentum typically is developed through like a high P, low P sequence, right? If we need to get someone going, if we need to get someone responding, not an issue here, right? Jess has plenty of momentum. She's preparing for this gym meet. She is well on her way to practicing for this meet, okay? Momentum does not seem to be an issue. C, she can train for generalization. How do we train for generalization? Well, we train using different environments, different stimuli, different people, changing variables. Jess is doing all these things. If she can execute her routine at her home gym, her training environment, and then she can execute it at another gym outside of the training environment, that's generalization, right? Performing a skill or behavior outside of the training environment is generalization. Jess is now training for generalization. C looks like our best answer. What about D? She can shape her behavior. Again, she's already executed this behavior to perfection, right? We're way past that. Now she needs to be sure she can generalize it so when she goes to her meet, she won't fall flat due to a lack of training. So what is a benefit of just practicing at her friend's gym? C, she can train for generalization. Which of the following statements is false? All right, so I don't typically ask questions like this, very open-ended questions, okay? But I wanted to do something a little different today, right? Give a different taste of what you might see. Now, with this, we typically say attack our questions, right? We read the information, we try to predict the answer. You can't do that here, okay? Because all you want to know, or all you know, is you're trying to find a statement that is false. It's all we go by. So we have to go straight to our answer choices, right? So we're finding a statement that's false. A, reinforcement is determined by impact on behavior rather than what the reinforcer looks like. Is that true? Yes, right? How do we determine if something's reinforcing? Well, how does it affect behavior? So reinforcement, no matter what it looks like, we look at how that reinforcement impacts behavior to decide if it's reinforcing or not. So A is true. B, extinction is a type of punishment. Careful, okay, especially if you're new. Extinction, okay, we use it to decrease behavior, but it is not a type of punishment. Okay, punishment is adding or removing stimuli. Extinction is withholding, right? There's a big, big difference. Extinction is not punishment. Make sure you know that, okay? So B is false. B is our answer, right? But let's read all of our answer choices. C, we use contingencies, not bribes. Absolutely. We use if-then statements, not then-if, okay? If you work, then you get ice cream, not here's ice cream, now we work. So C is true. And then D, fading reinforcement too quickly can reduce the response rate of the learner. Yes, right? If we fade our reinforcement too quickly, if we change the reinforcement schedule too quickly and response is slow, what is this called? Well, this is possibly ratio strain. So D is true as well. The only question here that's false, or the only answer here that's false, is going to be B. Extinction is a type of punishment. Which of the following examples represents automatic behavior? Okay, there's been a little confusion around automatic behavior, okay? It's part of our functions. It's one of our 4 functions. A lot of people refer to the automatic function as sensory these days, which is fine. That's kind of the common or current nomenclature. So totally fine. But there's a reason we call it automatic behavior, okay? So we have 2 types. We have socially mediated behavior, which involves 2 or more people. And then we have automatic behavior, which only involves the person. So typically when we talk about automatic sensory behavior, we're talking about self-stimulatory behavior. People engaging in behavior that's reinforcing with no one else involved. So that being said, we need to find an example of this where someone is engaging in this automatic functional behavior, okay, meaning no one else is involved to deliver this thing that quote unquote feels good. A, Greg takes Jordan's milk, so Jordan punches Greg in the face. Both boys are sent to detention. Easy one to eliminate. There's Greg involved with Jordan. Jordan responds. Both boys are punished. Okay, this is socially mediated behavior. B, Jace lines up his cars on the shelf and runs his eyes along the lines of cars. Is anyone else involved in this behavior scenario? No, Jace isn't responding to anyone. He's not trying to get the attention of anyone. He's simply lining up his cars and engaging in this behavior. For all we know, no one else is around. No one else is mentioned. So far, B is our best example of automatic behavior, a singular person involved in the response. C, Ms. Maggie reprimands Carla for talking out in class, so Carla decides to flop to the floor and cry. Again, socially mediated. There's 2 people involved. There's a give and take with Maggie and Carla. Okay, socially mediated is C. And then D, Dad pulls his car in the garage and yells at his kids to help unload the groceries. Be careful here, right? Yes, Dad is the one engaging in the behavior. Okay, there's no response noted yet, but what caused Dad to yell? Well, the kids. Okay, so this is socially mediated. There's more than one person involved. So the best example of automatic behavior here is going to be B. Jace lines up his cars on the shelf and runs his eyes along the line of cars. One of Blaine's chores is to take out the garbage whenever it is full. If Blaine takes out the garbage every day during the week, he will receive $10 at some point the following week. At most, he can receive $10 every 7 days. What type of reinforcement schedule is this? Okay, so be careful, right? When we're looking at basic reinforcement schedules, we're asking ourselves, are we dealing with the number of responses or are we dealing with time? Does Blaine need to complete a certain amount of responses or does he need to deal with time? Well, if Blaine has to take the garbage out every day during the week, he needs to do what? He needs to take the garbage out 7 times. There's 7 days in the week, okay? And he has to hit every day of the week taking out the garbage in order to get reinforcement, right? Second question we ask, okay, so now we know it's a ratio, right? Because we're dealing with responses and not time. Second question we ask, is it fixed or is it variable? Is it an average number of responses for Blaine, or is it a fixed number of responses? Well, it's going to be a fixed number of responses. No matter what, he needs to take out that garbage every day during the week. So he needs to take it out once a day, at least 7 times, right? 7 times during the week. Okay. Now, he's going to get $10 at some point the following week, but that's irrelevant. Okay. $10 is the consequence, right? That's not the reinforcement schedule, right? The reinforcement schedule is Blaine engages in taking out the garbage once every day during the week for a total of at least 7. Okay. So what type of reinforcement schedule is this? Is this an FR1? Well, an FR1 would mean Blaine takes out the garbage once and he gets $10. Not the case, right? He needs to take out the garbage 7 times. FR7. Is Blaine required to take out the garbage 7 times? Yes, right? He can take it out more, okay, but he can't take it out less. That's why it's not a VR7, okay? Because VR, a variable, is an average. So it can be more, it can be less. Blaine needs to hit 7 no matter what. He can take it out more, but he needs to hit 7 no matter what, okay? Doing it every day during the week. So it's a fixed ratio 7 because there's a fixed number of responses required from Blaine to earn that $10 every day. And then, of course, D is eliminated because it's an interval schedule, and we're not dealing with time here. We are dealing with an FR7, a fixed ratio 7. Just like positive, negative reinforcement and punishment, you need to break down fixed ratios, variable ratios, fixed intervals, variable intervals, piece by piece when you're studying, okay? Don't rush through this stuff. The more you break it down in the beginning, the easier it's going to get the closer you get to your exam, okay? Break it down, break it down, break it down. What measurement procedure would be the least appropriate to use if you wanted to measure eloping, aka running away, behavior? Now, it's a little more technical, okay, because some measurement procedures, we really want a clear beginning and end to behavior, right? And eloping, right, it's hard to notice a clear beginning and end, right? Because if the client starts running away, that's one instance of eloping, but he might keep running, okay? So it's like, do we continue counting that as eloping? Not necessarily. I mean, as soon as they get up and run away, as soon as they elope, that's typically one response, right? So it's going to be hard to measure a certain aspect of this behavior. Would it be hard to measure rate? Could you take a frequency on eloping? Absolutely. You can count how many times they run away. And can you add a time component? Can you say they elope 3 times per hour? Definitely, right? So rate would be definitely appropriate to measure eloping. What about IRT, inter-response time? Could you measure the time in between eloping behavior? Well, let's say you elope at 10 a.m., then you elope again at 11 a.m. The IRT is what? An hour. There's an hour in between first response and second response. Nothing wrong with B, nothing wrong with IRT. What about duration? Duration is very tricky here, right? How do we really know the clear beginning and end to eloping? You might say, well, the beginning is as soon as they leave the chair. What's the end of eloping, right? A certain distance, a certain time. Very difficult to pinpoint because it happens so quickly, okay? Duration is probably going to be less appropriate than rate or IRT just because the likelihood of it fluctuating is pretty high, right? And it's going to be hard to consistently measure duration for this behavior that doesn't always have a clear beginning and end. So far, C is the least appropriate. D, latency. Can we measure the time from the SD to the start of running away? Sure, I say get to work, the client starts to run away. That's my latency. Very easy to measure. So can you never use duration for eloping? Well, not necessarily. But compared to rate, IRT, and latency, it is going to be the least appropriate due to not a clear beginning and end necessarily of this behavior, okay? Kind of a harder measurement question. So if you got it right, good for you, right? If not, rethink a little bit, okay? Go through it again, really ponder it, understand how we got to duration as the least appropriate type of measurement here. You're feeling good about your client's progress. The last 2 months have been smooth with minimal maladaptive behaviors. Today, after you give your client a demand, your client engages in a maladaptive behavior that you've never seen before. What should you do as an RBT? Well, the first thing you don't do is panic. A lot of new RBTs, they get the behavior plan, they get the treatment plan, they're chugging along, and then something new happens and they panic. We are in the field of behavior analysis. Behavior is our job. It's what we do. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be panicked by it. It happens. Okay. How you respond is going to really highlight your ability as an RBT, right? We want to respond appropriately when we notice new behaviors. So what should you do? What do you do if you notice a new behavior? A, hypothesize a function. Should you start hypothesizing why that behavior occurred? Absolutely, right? If you learn nothing else, you need to learn the functions of a behavior. The function of the behavior is how we treat the behavior. If we don't know the function, we can't treat it. As soon as you've seen that behavior happen, think about antecedents, think about consequences, think about why would this behavior be happening. Absolutely, absolutely hypothesize a function. A looks like an answer, our answer. Do we pick it and move on? No. What do? Read all the question choices. B, start designing a behavior plan. Is it your job as an RBT to design the behavior plan? Nope. Whose job is that? The BCBA or the supervisor? Okay. You might assist, but you don't just notice a behavior and start designing away. It's not part of your job requirement. C, inform your supervisor as soon as possible. Absolutely. Ethical code, task list, all of them, right? What do they stress? Open, clear, constant, immediate communication with the supervisor. They want constant communication between you and your supervisor. Something comes up, tell somebody. So what is our answer? Well, A looked good, C looked good. D says both A and C. So of course, that's what we're going to be picking. If you notice a new maladaptive behavior that you've never seen before, 1, hypothesize a function, and then 2, inform your supervisor as soon as possible. Why is it important that we describe both the topography and the function of a behavior when defining a behavior? So let's start here. What is a topography? Well, topography is what the behavior looks like. It's got nothing to do with the function generally, right? It's just what it looks like. I hold up my hand. You might describe the topography as me holding out all 5 fingers outstretched in front of your face, something like that. That's a topography. The function is, why am I holding out my hand, right? Why is that behavior occurring? Well, it can be many different functions, right? It can be to get a high five. It can tell someone to stop. It can be to threaten someone. It can be to get somebody's attention, on and on and on, right? Topography and function are not always related. A behavior can look the same and function very differently. So why is it important that we describe both? Okay. A, the topography is always directly related to the function. We just went over that and we know it's not. Okay. Just because a behavior looks a certain way doesn't mean it functions a certain way. B, the topography is more important than the function. Absolutely not. The function is the most important piece. If we had to choose, we would take function every time. But how would we identify what the behavior looks like, right, if we don't define topography as well? Both play their part in helping behavior. C, the topography tells you why the behavior happens. No. What tells you why the behavior happens? Of course, the function. And then D, the topography will help the observer identify the behavior. Yes, the reason we want to describe a good topography is so when we go in there or someone else goes in there, they know immediately what behavior we're looking for. I can't just say, well, observe the behaviors that happen for attention. That doesn't say enough information. What does that look like? What does it sound like? What is the magnitude? What is the intensity? What happens, right? What is it? What can we see? What can we observe with our eyes? That's the topographical part. And the topographical part is going to help us identify that behavior so we can start to identify and treat the function. So is function more important than topography? Yes. Is topography important? Absolutely. So why do we describe both? Well, the topography is going to help us identify the behavior. There are different types of prompting and different levels of prompting. Each type of prompting is applicable in certain situations. What's the best way to describe the different type of prompts? Kind of a different question, okay? Very easy question. When we talk about our prompts, right, we have physicals, we have models, gesturals, visuals. When we want to talk about the different types of prompts, what's another way to say that? How about A, prompt hierarchy? Yeah, right. We have our prompt hierarchy. We can go physical down to visual. We can go visual to physical. Another way, or the best way to describe the different type of prompts, would be the prompt hierarchy. Prompt dependency is what happens when we use prompting too much, but it's not how we describe different types of prompts. And then most to least and least to most are strategies for using prompts, but typically it's not how we're going to describe the prompts we're using. Okay, typically when we talk about prompts, we talk about prompts in relation to the prompt hierarchy. And then finally, what is the rate of screaming for data point 6? I know I've had similar questions like this lately, a lot of them it feels like, but I get a lot of questions about this. One question I get all the time is, well, how am I supposed to do this math? They give you a calculator, they give you a pencil, they give you paper. Okay, all you got to do is fill in the numbers. If you're finding rate, it's frequency divided by time. Find your frequency, put it over time, divide. Okay, so we're going to practice again. What is the rate of screaming for data point 6? Find data point 6 down here. We know they're 3-hour sessions. We know if we go across to Y, it happened twice. So our frequency is 2. Our time is 3. We divide 2 divided by 3. What do we get? 0.67 per hour. Simple as that, okay? Don't overcomplicate these graphing questions. I'm telling you, you don't need to be intimidated by data questions or graphing questions, okay? Do a few, they're going to become second nature. All right, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you did. Check out rbtexamreview.com for all our set of materials. Questions, comments, let me know. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.